Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Depressed Dior, and this is Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 21. Apologies for last video, I did forget to turn on the animations, though obviously that last match didn't actually have much combat to begin with, but I'll try to remember this time. Anyway, again, I was like, alright, that last match was rough. Let's see how, oh great, it's all this. We got Dragon Slayer, of course. This one is definitely very rushy, to say the least. Really technically only one primary tank. There's some other characters that could do some pseudo tanking physical, which doesn't really matter against my box in most cases. Only one primary healer, which is probably only there for the act again. And of course got S21 with act again. We got some characters that can charge up, which means they can stay in the back while all that's happening. And yeah, a lot of nonsense here. A lot of stuff that can reach us in one round if we're not careful. So I get rid of Dragon Slayer because that's got to be a thing. At least I don't have to deal with Enya this time. Speaking of, they banned mine, and they grab Isolde. I was like, all right, well, get rid of all your Actigans. not dealing with that. I grabbed Ilya as a first pick. Yeah, I spent a lot of time on the first on my first pick, figuring, because usually if you see my videos, I usually grab Bright Summoner immediately. But I was like, Ilya could potentially put a lot of pressure and do some ability reduction. So I was like, I'll just grab her and we'll see what happens. They get rid of Salika, get rid of Liana, and they grab a Boro. Now, Boro is a little less threatening because he does actually need time to charge up. But once he goes Dragon form, I don't have very much experience fighting a Boro. I fought him a few times when he goes full. Usually I try to kill him before he goes Dragon. That's probably not going to be possible with this setup. But I have fought him when he was in Dragon form, and it's usually very painful because of that fixed damage he does in return. Alright, I go ahead and get rid of Jace, get rid of the Awakened one, and I got Christiane at this point. I was like, I need to at least have somebody that can tank. So I lose Bright Summoner, I lose Risen Seal. So at this point I have only Tiaris as a primary healer. They grab Sword and Light and Shadow. I go ahead and get rid of, one moment, I had to look up the names, Tarantel and Bernhardt. Obviously I wanted to get rid of any tanks, and his ability to swap out and all that nonsense is going to be too much to deal with. Bernhardt, of course, can cover ground pretty quickly nowadays, and of course he can do a lot of AoE and fixed damage and possibly negate healing, so didn't want to deal with any of that nonsense. Grab Tiaris. So the good news is, since my opponent decided to ban all my healers right off the bat, and probably even thought Bright Summoner was a healer, even though she's not for me, that does actually leave me with a lot of flexibility as far as what I can do for damage. Minus what's getting banned. I lose Rendell, and I lose Sovereign of the Ice Abyss. They grab their Sovereign of the Ice Abyss. So now they have someone that can cart everyone over, which is very annoying. I go ahead and get rid of Andriel, get rid of Apotheosis. I grab my Awakened one. And they go ahead and ban my Virilia. They get rid of Ana Kelmo. And they grab Ymir. So alright, so I have Hibiscus and Lightbringer to pick from. I obviously don't really need a second tank for this. They're going to have multiple ways of bypassing guard. Isolde could get guard bypass turn 1. A Burrow, once fully in Dragon form with all the stacks, will also be able to bypass guard. So with that, I'm just going to grab Hibiscus and see how she does. This will be my first time playing with her. Alright, so this time I'll remember to turn all that on. Alright, so introductions to the Dragon Trooper SP version. We'll talk about that in a second. Aboro, Iron Helmet, that's actually pretty rough. I'm just seeing what all... Yeah, cut all that. Okay, Dragon Valor, sackable to 4-time. Immunity. More Dark Guard and all of that. Okay, I was just seeing kind of all of this does. Anyway, he's got his transformation, he has his primary attack, and then he has Iron Helmet to reduce all that range damage coming his way. So, Dragon Troopers. So originally they weren't too great. They're cool looking units, but they didn't really have much use. Now that they have an SP version, the SP version is very, very useful. They get some damage reduction if you have a mobility increasing effect. They, of course, can do extra damage based off how much you move, and then, or extra attack based off how much you move. And then if you end your turn after, or end your action after moving 3 or more blocks, you gain +2 mobility. So they just have built-in mobility, which is great for if you happen to be using the accessory for like Isolde, where you can get additional mobility after you don't do any offensive actions. I believe that all stacks together with Dragon Troopers. So it's you can get a lot of mobility in one turn. Obviously, the catch is you have to spend at least one turn doing it, but it's still pretty crazy. Ymir, Redeemers. This one's actually Demon class, which I don't even know why, because they don't. I don't believe Ymir has anything that actually prevents class disadvantage. That being said, I don't really have any holy classes nowadays, which is probably part of the reason why. I guess that's what people have been started doing, is they have been taking Demon class because Dragon Slayer, because Dragon Slayer, of course, just wrecks holy units, and so a lot of people switch off of holy class to avoid that nonsense, and so that actually opens up a door for people to actually take their Demon class, which of course has higher stats. That being said, I still think it's a bit risky. Sword and Light Shadow, of course, doesn't deal with class disadvantage, so she doesn't need to worry about that. She's got 3C, teleport, and of course her AoE. And then Steelman Werewolves, and then down here we got Sovereign the Ice Abyss, who went all AoEs, has 3C, Glacial Shackles, and then Heaven's Sanction, and then has, of course, Fairy Spirit Prophets. Over here, we got Awaken one. Same kit as last time. Poison Bat Mages, Black Hole, Swap, and 3C. Christiane, I went with Phalanxes. The only unit that does magic damage is Sovereign the Ice Abyss. So just being able to resist physical damage is probably the way to go. Everything else is just all her exclusives, and she's good to go. She does have a Butterfly, which will hopefully be used to soak a 3C for Sword and Light and Shadow. Tiaris. I think this is our first time with Tiaris on a Apex match. So for those who didn't watch my video on World Arena, the SP version of Tiaris now guarantees, puts up a new special buff. Originally her buff would give you healing after you engage in combat. Now it does healing after combat or anytime you take damage. Which is really good. Essentially, it's like almost like a crystal healing effect. So if you get hit with a bunch of AoEs, you can just passively heal from it, which is really helpful. Or if you just get hit with like nasty tank buster hits, you can just heal up a lot better. Anytime that she casts any skills on allies, she'll also give a bubble that will soak a percentage of health based off her intelligence. Also, for each ally hit with a skill, she reduces that skill's cooldown by, or she reduces the skill with the longest cooldown by 1 up to 3 turns. What this pretty much means is she can essentially do back-to-back Realm of Repose, because Realm of Repose only has a 3-turn cooldown. So as long as you're hitting 3 units with it, it's free. Pretty crazy. She does have access to Holy Knights or whatever they're called, the ones that the new SP class. Or I guess it's an older SP class at this point. But I actually went with Windbloom Chantress just so I can have some cooldown reduction. I think in hindsight I should probably switch over to the other one. Anyway, Ilya, I have Fairy Spirit Prophets, Sacred Repulsion, which is her AoE, Eternal Axiom, which is her Act Again, Move Again. I also can apply stacks of essentially immunity for people. And then, of course, we have our 3C. And then over here we have Hibiscus. I'm using Lone Wing Arrows, which is one of the newer troops. It's an archer. Gets 30% attack. And when fighting enemies with mobility higher than 3, you get an additional 20% attack. So it's practically designed to shoot any flyer. And then after battle, she can move 2 additional blocks. She already has Move Again, thanks to some of her other abilities, but this is still nice to have. Also, this, I guess, is our first time playing with her, so attack and crit increased by 20%. This is the 5-star version. After taking action, she will apply Gaze to the nearest enemy within a straight line. So, for example, if I were to end my turn right now, it would actually go. It'll apply that gaze to Sovereign of the Ice Abyss. What it does is if that enemy does a skill while being gazed, they will get a stack of they'll get penetrate, which will reduce their skill. They get skill damage reduction by 25%. Then they get penetrate, which will make it so they can't be guarded by any attacks from Hibiscus. And the effect lasts for 2 turns. Both penetrate and gaze do ignore immunity, which is very helpful. And then gaze is removed after the second turn after being applied or when triggered. So, pretty handy stuff. We do have Backstab, which just does some fixed damage if you attack someone with full HP. We got Eye of the Wind, which does a passive effect at the start of the turn. So over here, I have these little buffs I have assigned to Tiaris and Ilya. What it does is whenever they finish taking action, they will apply Penetrate to enemies with Gaze within 2 blocks. So they can kind of just help build stacks for Broken Winged Bird or Hibiscus. The active effect is it's a line AoE that has 7 range, deals 0.2 times AoE damage and applies Gaze. And then after battle, can move another 3 blocks if the caster is on defensive terrain or in water. The skill rate, if the caster is on defensive terrain or in water, it gets +2 range. And then we have our 3C, which is every stack of penetrate. For each penetrate on the enemy, she gets +2 mobility and +1 range, up to 2 stacks. And then the active effect is a 4 range straight line single target attack that does 1.6 times damage. And after eliminating the enemy, it reduces the cooldown by 2 turns. It has 3 turn cooldown. Ranged soldiers do attack with this, and then after attacking, she can move again with the remaining mobility. And if an enemy is afflicted with Gaze or Penetrate, the attack increases by 30% for this battle. And if the enemy is afflicted with Penetrate, the enemy becomes unable to trigger effects that resist fatal damage. Good hit. And which is only really applies on PvP. Anyway, that is everybody. So let's dive into this. Alright. So Primordial Soul. She's going to, of course, get her guard bypass ability. Yep, she moved 5 spaces, so the troops were going to give her extra mobility. Doesn't look like she has the accessory that gives additional mobility, though. And then she should only be able to move... Oh, that's right. I keep forgetting that her Primordial Soul lets her move 4 blocks. So there you go, 4 blocks, and then she's going to move 3 spaces to get her mobility stack. Alright, so this puts her all the way up to this range, which means she can, with her, what is it called? Draconic Rejuvenates. Too much text. If she uses Dragon Soul Blade, she'll be able to kill anything at this point. Alright. So I pass turn in place with Awaken one. I'm going to throw out some spellbounds. I target, it isn't too important, but mainly it was targeting Sovereign of the Ice Abyss. Aboro, I don't see actually rushing forward. He's going to spend some time transforming, and Sword and Light and Shadow will just teleport, so it doesn't really matter. But Sovereign of the Ice Abyss, we can at least slow her down a bit and kind of go from there. Because obviously what she's going to probably do is throw out some chains for certain units, and then try to take advantage of that to push forward. Alright, so I go ahead and use this opportunity. So one thing to note about Isolde, of course, when she has her shield, she's immune to all debuffs, but as mentioned, Gaze bypasses all of that. So I go ahead and just shift over and kind of gaze at Isolde and see if we can do anything about that. Ymir is actually probably the least of our worries, simply because until he transforms, or until he breaks his chain, he doesn't actually have a lot of mobility. So obviously, I mentioned before, I'm in kill range right now, so I'm just going up here just so I can put out the Shrine Maiden of Justice, and then I'm going to reposition just so I can keep expanding the range. Unfortunately, I need 3 stacks to get the mobility debuff, but it is what it is. So she's using Chain, and she opts to throw a Chain only on Sword and Light Shadow and not Isolde. So she doesn't plan on carting Isolde over. I'm assuming, I don't know why. Oh, actually, is it actually reducing mobility? I thought you need 3 stacks to reduce mobility. Can't see that. Into the next blah blah blah. It's not that one. Oh, it's only 2 or more stacks. I thought it was 3. Okay, so this actually does reduce mobility already. I didn't even think that through. Okay, I don't know how my ability. I don't know my characters, obviously. So my opponent's going to go ahead and just pull through, and she's actually not going to ferry anyone. She's just going to go by herself. Obviously, this still works out because Sword and Light Shadow can now teleport all the way over to Sovereign Ice Abyss. And she's currently safe. I only have my tank and Tiaris active at this point. Oh, one thing to note is I did use Axiom on Christiane just to get an additional immunity stack. So that way I have Butterfly and this to ensure that I at least still have self-res once Sword and Light Shadow rushes me. So here comes Lightning Slash. Okay, so I don't lose my self-res. I don't lose my self-res because I soaked it with a Butterfly. And despite the physical damage reduction I have, it still does 43,000 damage. So it kills, but this also lets me trigger off her exclusive helm, which will put her immediately into the Whispers of whatchamacallit. And she gets a bunch of healing back. So the Higambana, the way it works is all stats increase by 5% except for HP. When forced into battle, she'll deal increased damage, and she restores 20% of her HP after battle. So very helpful. With all that set up, I did lose some buffs, I believe, because that's the effect of Decisive Blade. Yeah, it dispels 5 buffs, but as you can see, I still have my guard and all that good stuff. And I haven't even gone with Tiaris yet, so we're going to go ahead and take advantage of that. We're going to go ahead and do Realm of Repose. This not only heals, so it does a few things. It dispels a debuff immediately before you heal. Yeah, we'll go ahead and show it off. It's first of all, it provides a command aura, which makes it so everyone's immune to mobility reduction and take less fixed damage. The heal effect dispels a debuff before you do the heal, and then it puts a terrain effect in the center, which will provide a command effect where everyone within 3 blocks of it will get 15% defense and magic defense, and then after taking action, will restore HP and all sorts of good things. So yeah, all that's good stuff. And then, let's see, thanks to the Angel of Justice, every time we do actions, anytime we do any sort of combats, we'll also heal. So we got a lot of stuff going on here. Alright, so my opponent goes first. It's going to go ahead and do Abyssal Ice Prison. As you can see, the Cure Healing already triggering. And it does freeze Awaken one. But for the most part, we're kind of okay. We didn't actually take a lot of damage. Sword and Light Shadows 3C is on cooldown. So all she has is Edge Drop Slash, which is not going to kill me. The only big thing here is I'm not in a great position with all the ice shards here. And I can only do 3C in a straight line. So I was definitely kind of torn on exactly how I was going to do this. But I decided to go ahead and just attack. I do have a bow that does Eroding Touch, but I don't remember exactly all its effects. Didn't die, that was what I was concerned of, but I also didn't get kill here, but it was close. I also got a gaze on Sword and Light Shadow in the process. And I go ahead and use this opportunity to get 3C on Sword and Light Shadow. This will definitely get kill. Obviously this will proc her exclusive armor, which will put down a soul shard so she can get her self-res back. But it's going to soften her up, and that's all I really care about at this point. And of course we get another stack of this, which is going to expand our range even further. So Edge Drop Slash. She's going to do it in place so she can get her self-res back. And of course we have all our little immunity stacks at this point. So I decided to go ahead and attack with Tiaris. This was actually a bad call. For some reason I thought I had a chance with holy units, but again, she ignores class disadvantage. What I should have done is heal Awakened One, that way she can get unstunned. But that would have definitely guaranteed I'd killed, like, everybody. It would have guaranteed I killed everybody at that point. So, yeah, I was being really sloppy here. Goes to... Yeah, Dragon's charging up. She'll be full soon. I'm going to go ahead and use this opportunity to throw out a full bloom. Which will do a little bit of AoE damage, which is just what I need to just kill off Sovereign the Ice Abyss. Alright, so... Yeah, unfortunately, this Awakened One is standing on an Ice Shard, so she's just going to stay stunned forever until the terrain goes away or I heal her off. Isolde is definitely in position to murder somebody. Ilia does have a self-res, thanks to her Guardian Angel thing, and it'll eat up her Guardian Angel, which will suck, but it'll at least make sure she won't die. Hibiscus is kind of not in any danger right now, and neither is Tiaris. Killing Awakened One, of course, she'll come back, and Christiane is not really a target for Isolde. So here comes this. So I believe the idea here is going to be 3C. And hoping the AoE will finish her off. Unfortunately, since I have Tiaris, that's not going to happen. Mainly because it's going to proc my cure. So I self-res, get my cure, get hit with the AoE part, get hit with cure again. I lost my my angel, unfortunately, and it's going to reset the stacks as well once I resummon it. But that's okay. I go ahead and use the Eroding Touch, use 3C. I do have a Twilight Star, of course. Soul Hunt Execution. Flying Troops. That is Isolde. And I go ahead and use this opportunity to throw a gaze on Ymir. At this point, Sword and Lion Shadow decides to flee. Again, I was kind of dumb here. I did the Sacred Repulsion, which does get rid of the self-res, but I should have healed Awakened One first, and then got the kill with that instead. But I go ahead and throw out Striated of Justice again. Get 2 stacks active, and we got full stack Dragon ready. So, do the heal again, finally get the stun worn off. Ymir's just trucking along. And I go ahead and just kind of shuffle forward a little bit. Alright, Dragon Morph. Yeah, but unfortunately he just kind of hangs out. He definitely has a lot of mobility, a lot of range. He has all of his abilities. He can AoE, do AoE damage. He does fixed damage when you kill him. He's definitely a monster. He also takes like reduced AoE damage. So first I go ahead and try to do my AoE here to see if I can snipe Sword and Light Shadow, but came short. I think in hindsight I should have just shot the dragon instead. The dragon's also immune to all debuffs at this point, so I go ahead and just do what I can. And then I'm going to go ahead and do 3C on it. Does quite a bit of damage, but not enough to kill it. So Ymir decides to rush in at this point. And goes straight for the Awakened One, which I'm completely okay with, because all my stuff's on cooldown. Alright. Alright, I go ahead and use Full Bloom again. This is just so I can get HP below 100% for the Redeemers, because holy soldiers tend to get a lot of damage reduction when they're at full life. I go ahead and move back with Ilia. I won't be able to get a stack because of this, but this does put me out of range of the dragon. So I'm able to attack anything that's in my Angel's aura. So I go ahead and just get a kill off, get rid of the self-res at this point. Go ahead and use this opportunity to throw out Miracle. Alright. Now what's the dragon going to do? Goes after Tiaris. I don't know if that's the best call, but this is definitely going to kill. Yeah, 54,000. I almost got that. Almost counter killed, I think. Does some AoE damage, but again, Cure. Cure is still active even after Tiaris dies. So I go ahead and use this opportunity to go ahead and see if I can get kill with a Soul Halt and Execution here. But again, came up short. Ymir tries to run away, which is fine. I go ahead and use External Axiom. And I use this opportunity to go ahead and reposition Shrine Maiden of Justice to somewhere that's not in the mist. And then I go ahead and I position in a way so I can get Christiane in guard range. And I just have to hope I don't die from fixed damage from this. 6%. Unfortunately, I don't get to see how much damage that was. Actually, we can do math. So... Because fixed damage, the way you can handle it if you have troops is you just have it. And I'll kind of give you an idea of what you're looking at. So let's see if I can see what it is. 28, 4, 228. So that's 14,214 or something like that. Something around that range. So I was down to about 1,000 HP. So I was able to survive. Yay for buffing up HP. So that's pretty important. Honestly, even if we had traded kills, I think it would have been fine. I still had Awaken 1. Ymir's already acted. Sword and Light and Shadow is at nothing. And I have Broken Winged Bird still. And then, of course, I have a Christiane as well, who can... I believe she has First Strike after... Yeah, I think she has First Strike whenever she gets does counterattacks. Yeah, when she counterattacks, she gets First Strike. Alright. So, goes ahead and backs away. I go ahead and use this opportunity to just attack normally. I think I can do 3C, but it didn't really matter. This kill will ensure that the timer on the Awakened one turns off. And then my opponent gives up. So yeah, crazy fight. Like I said, I made some mistakes. I should have purged off the stun off of the Awakened one sooner. That would have just guaranteed I got a lot of kills early on. At the same time, though, leaving them alive and letting my opponent just waste turns moving them away definitely seemed to actually somewhat effective. But it seemed like my opponent was also making a lot of mistakes as well. So honestly, like the moment there was only when I had only Christiane and Tiaris on the round one, my opponent should have just chained two people and yanked them both forward. Because after that, then I can just kind of run in and kind of do whatever I want. But at the same time, if Sovereign the Ice Abyss had yanked in Isolde, or actually, I probably wouldn't. Well, I'm trying to think here. Yeah, I think the two people they should have yanked forward is Sword and Light Shadow and Ymir. They both have self-reses. Ymir is just a monster. Both of them together would have definitely killed my tank. So I think that would have been probably the better call. Because they would still get to go first on the next round. And then I would be kind of stuck in the situation where I'm just like, I have to have some way to survive this. So yeah, there was definitely some things that probably they could have done better and just rushed me down. All right. Again, this is just placement matches. We'll see how things go in the future. I am the Depressed Dior. This was Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 21. I'll see you guys later.